The old, tired air conditioner let out one final, agonizing groan before falling dead silent, leaving the entire house wrapped in a heavy, uneasy stillness. I wiped a layer of sweat from my forehead, gathered up my scattered tools, and made my way toward the front door, my mind already drifting to the long, tiring drive back home. But just as my fingers touched the cool brass of the doorknob, a soft, gentle voice behind me stopped me dead in my tracks. It wasn't loud, urgent, or dramatic by any means, yet something in the way she said those words made my heart sink right into my stomach. "Not so fast. I still need you." Right then and there, I had a sudden realization. Fixing a broken cooling unit had never been the real reason I was called over in the first place. Now, before we jump into the rest of the story, if you believe in simple kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of unexpected human connections, please hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this with someone who could use a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes. Your support truly helps these heartwarming stories reach more people all around the world. My name is Mason Hale. At 26 years old, I spent the vast majority of my days repairing air conditioners and heating systems across our quiet little town. It wasn't fancy or glamorous work, but it paid the bills and kept a roof over my head. Most people barely even remembered my name 5 minutes after I fixed their problems. They'd thank me, give me a quick handshake, and immediately move on with their busy lives. To be honest, I had grown completely used to being invisible. That particular Tuesday morning had started out just like every other grueling summer day. The heat was absolutely relentless. The kind of brutal sun that turned concrete sidewalks into scalding ovens and made everyone cranky and impatient. Around noon, my phone rang. It was an old friend of mine, Rowan. We had gone to high school together, though as the years went by, life had pulled us down completely different paths. He sounded genuinely apologetic as he explained that his mother's air conditioner had suddenly died, and he was stuck 3 hours away on an urgent business trip. Normally, I would have politely told him to call the office and book an official appointment through our company, but there was a subtle desperation in his voice that convinced me to stop by right after my last job. He gave me the address, thanked me at least 5 times, and promised he'd make it up to me later. The house sat nestled at the very end of a quiet, tree-lined street filled with tall maples. It looked lovely from the outside, but there was an unmistakable shadow of loneliness hanging over the property. The curtains were drawn half shut, the front garden was overgrown and desperately needed tending, and the mailbox was overflowing with unread junk mail and advertisements. When the front door swung open, Rowan's mother, Celeste Whitmore, greeted me with a tired, gentle smile. She actually looked younger than I remembered from our high school football games and graduation ceremonies, but there was a deep, lingering sadness in her eyes that caught my attention straight away. She thanked me warmly for coming over on such short notice and led me through to the back of the house, where the broken outdoor unit was sitting, humming weakly in the stifling afternoon heat. As I rolled up my sleeves and got to work, she brought me a glass of cold lemonade and started asking polite, thoughtful questions about my life. Honestly, it was a little strange. Most customers usually disappear into another room while I fix things, but Celeste lingered nearby, almost as if she just desperately wanted someone to talk to. She asked if I still played the guitar, mentioned how much she remembered my father, and even shared a warm laugh over the time Rowan and I accidentally smashed her wooden fence with a stray baseball. A couple of hours flew by before I finally tracked down the issue: a burned-out capacitor and a badly frayed wire. It was actually a pretty easy fix, though years of sheer neglect had nearly ruined the whole system beyond repair. When the blast of cool, crisp air finally came rushing back into the house, Celeste smiled genuinely for the very first time that day. I packed up my heavy toolbox, accepted her warm thanks, and started walking toward the front door to head out. And that was the exact moment she stopped me. Not so fast. I still need you. I turned around, fully expecting her to point out another broken appliance. Maybe a leaky kitchen faucet or a flickering light fixture. Instead, she just stood there awkwardly in the hallway, nervously twisting the gold ring on her finger. There's something else, she admitted softly. She led me gently into the cozy living room. Framed family photographs covered almost every inch of the walls. Rowan as a chubby toddler, happy summer vacations down by the lake, birthday parties, and snow-filled Christmas mornings. But there was one glaring detail that was impossible to miss. In every single photo taken before a certain year, a kind-faced man was standing right by her side. After that year, he completely vanished from the frame. Celeste noticed me staring at the wall. "My husband passed away 3 years ago," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The entire room suddenly felt 10 times heavier. I vaguely remembered Rowan mentioning his dad's illness years ago, but I never truly grasped just how deeply that loss had shattered their world. She began to open up, explaining that ever since she lost him, the big house had become unbearable in its silence. Rowan had moved away for his career, the neighbors had slowly drifted off, and all the warm daily routines she used to share with her husband had vanished overnight. The broken air conditioner wasn't what terrified her at all. What scared her to death was the thought of facing another endless, suffocating summer evening completely alone with her thoughts. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. Then, she caught me off guard with a simple, quiet request. "Would you stay for dinner?" I hesitated for a second. Part of me felt a bit awkward and out of place. But another, deeper part of me understood exactly what she was really asking for. She didn't need a repairman anymore. She just needed a human being to sit with her. So I stayed. That evening, golden sunlight poured through the warm kitchen windows as we shared simple sandwiches and traded old stories. She told me all about how she met her husband at a county fair when she was only 19. In return, I found myself opening up about my own struggles, my failed attempt at college, the relationships that had fallen apart, and that quiet, lingering fear I carried that maybe my life was never going to amount to much. For the first time in years, someone was listening to me without an ounce of judgment. As the hours drifted by, I started noticing subtle details around the house that I had completely missed when I first walked in. The unopened mail stacked high on the counter. The dusty, untouched upright piano resting in the corner. A handwritten grocery list sitting on the table, clearly meant for 2 people, even though only one soul lived there now. Loneliness really does leave its fingerprints everywhere if you look close enough. By the time I finally stood up to leave, the sky outside had turned a brilliant shade of golden orange. Celeste walked me out to the front porch and thanked me once more. Not for fixing her air conditioner, but simply for staying and keeping her company. Over the next few weeks, I found myself making up little excuses to stop by her place. Sometimes Rowan would ask me to swing by and check on a minor household issue. Other times, I'd just bring over a couple of warm coffees and spend an hour sitting on the porch talking with her. Bit by bit, that quiet house began to change. Together, we rolled up our sleeves and cleared out the cluttered garage her husband had once loved so much. We fixed up the squeaky old porch swing. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I even helped her tune up that long neglected piano in the living room. She started laughing so much more easily. The heavy curtains were kept wide open, letting the light in, and bright flowers slowly returned to the garden beds outside. But something unexpected was changing deep inside me, too. For years, I had measured my own self-worth purely by the handyman jobs I completed and the meager paychecks I earned. Yet sitting across from Celeste, listening to her deeply personal stories about love, devastating loss, and remarkable resilience, I came to realize that small, genuine acts of kindness mean so much more than any amount of money ever could. One afternoon, Rowan finally returned home from his trip and pulled me aside in the driveway. I fully expected him to crack a joke about how much time I had been spending hanging out with his mom. Instead, his voice cracked with raw emotion as he looked me in the eye and thanked me. He quietly admitted that he had been sick with worry about her for months. Every phone call they had felt shorter and more distant, and every time he visited, he walked away wondering if she was truly going to be okay. He told me he had almost forgotten what his mother's genuine smile looked like, until he saw the two of us laughing together out in the backyard. That night, as I drove back home under the fading twilight sky, a powerful truth finally hit me. Sometimes people don't reach out because they need a machine or a broken object fixed. Sometimes they simply need another human being to step into their world and remind them that they haven't been forgotten. Now, before this story comes to an end, we have a quick, special request for you. Please head down to the comments and tell us about a person whose simple act of kindness changed your life, even in the smallest way. You never know, your story might be the exact spark of hope someone else needs to hear today. Months passed by, and that old air conditioner was still humming along and working perfectly, but honestly, that wasn't what mattered anymore. Celeste had taken a big step and joined a local community book club. Rowan found time to visit her far more often, and every now and then, she'd give me a quick call. Not because something was broken in the house, but because she had baked a fresh batch of cookies and wanted me to drop by, or because she was excited to play a new song she had just mastered on the piano. The very first day I arrived at that lonely, quiet house, I thought I was just there to fix a worn-out machine. Instead, I ended up helping mend something infinitely more important, a human heart carrying the heavy weight of grief. And perhaps, without either of us even realizing it at the time, she helped mend mine, too. If this story brought a little warmth to your heart today, please take a quick moment to like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below, share it with your close friends and family, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes. You truly never know who out there might need a gentle reminder that even the smallest, simplest act of kindness can echo through a person's life forever.